All right, and there it goes on my end. And
All right, and I'll start off my end. Hang
let's
on.
see.
All right, we're live. I'm joined today with Humane Mind. We're going to be talking about the Kavanaugh stuff again. This is perhaps going to be one of the most contentious. This is already one of the most contentious Supreme Court battles. It's also probably going to be one of the closest Supreme Court votes, whether they confirm or reject him. Um, Already, there's a few senators that are the swing votes in this whole thing. Um, so where exactly should we start off on this whole
Well,
fucking disaster?
well, there's been new information that has come out, and a lot of stuff. So I don't want the focus of this entire stream to be on Kavanaugh, although that might end up being the case. I
Uh,
do want to focus more on what the truth is, because that seems to be kind of up for debate, at least. And it shouldn't be, as far as, like, okay, the truth is not what she believes to be true or what he believes to be true. The truth is what actually happened. Well, how do you figure that out? Well, when it's her word versus his word, you have to go to the evidence. And then which side of the evidence, whose word does the evidence more align with? And in this
yeah,
case, it's not Ford. Like, all the evidence is backing up Kavanaugh on this. So that's where you have to assert the truth lies, and yet some people are lies, not as in is a truth lies, yeah, anyway, but lies as in that's where it is found, that's where it's resting. um but that's the only way you can actually get to the truth, is that you have to understand the truth exists regardless of what people say about it. And the only way to figure out what is closest to truth is you have to, I mean, we'll never get to the exact truth, but we have to get to the best approximation using evidence. What other, other people's testimony? Like, what is the most likely scenario out of the two that are presented?
yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I think everyone can agree that in terms of truth and everything, that sometimes we could come up with our own definitions of truth, and then there are times that people will bicker over what is the definition of truth. Like, how do you define truth? Because I think there was something that was the idea
Yeah.
you were pitching was to talk about
Well,
what truth is to an
well,
extent.
well. Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris had an entire hour-long conversation where they couldn't agree on what the truth was, and I think Sam Harris is a very intelligent individual, but I think he's flat out wrong on his assertion of what truth is. And I saw this in the Twitter feed recently with oh, what is the name of that person? That's something trap, right? It's came into my, the entangled trap, right?
Yeah,
So we started getting into the typical conversation about objective morality versus subjective morality, and they're continually focusing on science, and I'm like, what? Philosophy supersedes science. That I don't know why people don't grasp that. Science is within philosophy. It's You can't have science without the underlying rules established by philosophy. The fundamental philosophical axiom is the principle of non-contradiction. If A, then you can't have not A. That's how it's typically stated. Is if A equals true, then not A equals false. That's another way of stating the exact same idea. So if Kavanaugh is a rapist, he also can't be a not rapist. Okay, that seems pretty logical and pretty sound. If you don't start with that, all of science is meaningless,
yeah,
because then the number of the distance between here and the moon could be 100, but it could also be 101. Oh, it could also be 102. And you're like, well, I don't know what we're using as measurements. I'm just saying that you're like, what, you can't have science like that. If it's 100, it can't also be 50, right? If the answer to a problem is 100, you can't. Well, it's 100 or it's 50. And you're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. It can't be two different numbers simultaneously. It can't be itself and be something different. That's the principle of non-contradiction. You can't. It's like, well, he's a rapist, but he's also a really good guy. And like, no, you can't have that.
It's an oxymoron.
You're like, oh, well, Kavanaugh apparently, held this woman down when she was underage and put his hand over her mouth to prevent her from screaming and almost strangled her, which is still a crime that is punishable, that is not exhausted the statute of limitations on that, so she could file a police report and he could be in jail for that. But we're not interested in that. We just don't want to make him on the Supreme. We just don't want to let him on the Supreme Court. What? You're accusing him of doing something that is illegal, but not so illegal that you want to actually see him serve time. You just want to make sure he doesn't get the Supreme Court. What? If he did what they said he did, he should be in jail, where he will be raped and he will be beat within an inch of his life, or just maybe even flat out killed for what he did. Like, if he's involved in gang rapes, dude, he should be in jail. If he's involved in gang rapes, forget the Supreme Court. That's like the least you can do is make sure that he doesn't end up on the Supreme Court. If he is guilty of any of this, he should be in jail suffering the punishment. And yet, Democrats aren't interested in any of that. They're like, whatever. We just don't want him in the Supreme Court. I'm like, oh, I believe she's credible. So this is the part, I don't know if we talked about this last week. Like, Cory Booker was talking about, I find her very credible. I find this other witness very credible. What do you say about that, Kavanaugh? And I'm like, dude, right there, he is saying that if she is credible, then he's an attempted rapist. You don't talk casually with an attempted rapist, Cory Booker. If you think she is credible, then that means you think Kavanaugh attempted to rape her and should be in jail. You don't think, oh, well, I think she's credible and therefore I should just vote no. In what world does that make any sense? Anyway,
yeah.
I got lost or whatever in multiple trains of thought, but the philosophy is you can't have something and also its opposite, or also something, you can't have something while also being something completely different, or something different enough to make it, like, it's okay if you're like, okay, well, it's either 100 or it might be 99. It's like, okay, you have a close approximation, but you can't have, well, it's 100 or it's 1. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you got this, the margin of error is too big. If you're off by 1%, if you're off by 3%, okay, that's an acceptable percentage to be off. But if you're off by, well, could be up to 99% off, then you can't, that's not reliable, it's not credible, it's required for you to be a close approximation to the truth in order for it to be scientifically valid as a fact or evidence. And the only reason we can have that, the only reason that we can accept that as truth is because of the psychological, no, it's not psychological, the philosophical underpinning. Sorry, man, my brain was all over the place there. So the only reason that we can say, okay, well, it's 99% close to the truth, and the only reason we can accept that as true is because of the philosophical underpinning that says, okay, well, if it is close to being true, it can't also be close to being completely false. It's the non-contradiction principle at play, and you can't have science without it. But Sam Harris is trying to use science to determine truth, and I'm like, no, you can't use science to determine truth. Truth exists, and science is our method to discover what the truth is. It's our methodology. It's the process to discover truth. You don't get science to prove truth. That it's backwards. Let's see. You can prove what is true using science. Like, okay, if science, but it has to be. You have to start off with the philosophical position of this. Okay, so if this is true, then we would expect to see this evidence to support that truth. That's how science works. That's why you start off with a hypothesis in science. You're like, well, if the sun revolves around the earth, then we should see these things happening in our solar system, in our yearly patterns, in the way the orbit of the moon and all, like the orbit of the other planets. We should see certain characteristics. Mm-hmm. If we don't see those characteristics, well, then you have to change your hypothesis. Like, oh, well, what if the Earth orbits the sun? we should see these characteristics, and then we do our observations. Oh, does it? The hypothesis portion of science is philosophy. You cannot take philosophy out of science because, and you cannot have science without philosophy. So the underlying way to determine truth is ultimately with philosophy, not with science itself. So there are certain things that we have to figure out if they are true or not based on philosophy. Now, we would love to support that with physical evidence, which is what science does. Science gives us the physical evidence behind our proof, because we're like, okay, but there is not, let's see, the way I gotta phrase this is, so philosophy can help us to determine truths, right? But if you determine something to be physically impossible using philosophy, like, so the non-contradiction principle at play, so if 100 can't equal 1, you're not going to do some kind of scientific experiment that proves 100 equals 1. It's impossible to do that. We don't need to do the experiment to begin with, because you're like, the outcome is already an impossibility. You're not going to have 100 mice equals one mouse. That's not going to ever happen. You're not ever going to see that situation. Like, you might have a situation where you're like 100 of this object is equal to 1 of this object. But if you're comparing, 100 ounces of gold equals 1 ounce of gold, no, that is a physical impossibility. Because that's a physical impossibility, you don't have to do these tests and science to determine, which one of these is true. So, and that's what people are failing to understand, because they're like, we got to go to science for this, and they act as if science is the only way to discover truth. And you're like, no, we can easily do, here's, sorry I'm going off on this rant, but it is tied to the Kavanaugh thing, and it's tied to the ultimate theme of this. So, they are using debate to try to tell me that science is the only way to prove things are true. Debate is philosophy. Debate is not science. Debate is based on logic and reasoning, and that's what philosophy established, the rules for debate. You can't have a debate with me and say, but science is the only way we can determine what is true. Then why are we arguing? That's completely nonsensical to me. You're arguing against arguing being a valid way to prove things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that I never did see debates like that, but that does make a lot of sense. Yeah, but the thing that is also a good point is to realize that people tend to not use the word philosophical to describe opinions they hold, although I think you could call it philosophical, as it's your worldview. Yeah. It's like your way of thinking about human beings is your philosophy. How you think about things personally and in public. HUMANE could philosophically support laughing at Secular Hawk on Twitter, although in practice he won't do it.
Oh yeah, so it's your way of viewing the world, but there are certain ways of thinking about things that are inconsistent and would be rejected by rational philosophy. So there are certain ways that people act and behave that are not rational, which means while they are technically within the realm of philosophy, they are not valid forms of philosophy. This is where you get fallacies, right? Those are attempts at philosophy that fail. They fail to live up to scrutiny of the non-contradictory principle. They fail to live up to the scrutiny of being able to arrive at the truth. And so a lot of people live with a certain mentality, a certain viewpoint, which would be their philosophy, or another way of stating that is their ideology, but the ideologies are derived from philosophy. Mm-hmm. So their worldview could be incorrect. That doesn't mean that you throw out philosophy. It's like that's what I've been trying to drive home, is like your individual interpretation or your individual um, viewpoint might be wrong, that doesn't make the school or the methodology at which you arrived at, or the area of human understanding that you use to determine that ideology. You can't throw out the whole thing because of one person misusing it or arriving at an incorrect conclusion. That's what people are trying to do. They're like, oh, but philosophy has been wrong in the past. And you're like, but so is science. And like, oh, nope, ignore the science problems. But people used to think that in philosophy. They no longer think that now. And I'm like, people used to think that the world was flat. That would be scientific because they were actually doing experiments to prove that the world was flat. And actually, some people still do experiments to prove that the world is flat. Okay, that doesn't mean we have to dismiss all of science. But that's what some people want to do. All right, sorry. I'm a little, sorry for hogging up all the airtime and ranting a little bit, but this is the stuff that's been on my mind over the past week, and I'm like, man.
No, it's some good food for thought. I think that with the whole, people trying to find out what the truth is, I don't know. I think sometimes it does hamper the ability to get the conversation going. Like, it could get the conversation stuck in a rut. So, like, I mean, it is a necessary type of conversation, though, so everyone can agree on a definition to go forward. So, like, a good example is if I'm trying to debate, like, an action, like saying, rape is objectively wrong, and we try to define what's right, what's wrong, you're going to kind of need to go through that and say, okay, this is what's right and this is what's wrong, and, there's, of course, going to be certain key issues people are going to disagree on, and try and find out which has the better answer in terms of not just popularity. Forget popularity. Just think about what has the better answers to what can be the better solution to the problem at hand.
Yeah, and so the way it's set up, so yes, even in science and philosophy, there are people who disagree. But the methodology behind both is, so this goes back, so in science it's called Occam's razor. So this is the idea that the proposal with the fewest number of assumptions should be the one that is considered the valid one, right? So if you have one particular hypothesis, like, well, this is how I think, the planets interact with each other, and it has, like, it has more assumptions than you could count on one hand, and then you go to gravity, and I'm like, well, gravity only has, I think, 3 assumptions. I have to double check that, but there are 3. There even with the theory of gravity, there are some assumptions in it, but the number of assumptions is really, really small given how complex gravity is and how many areas it affects. And so, granted, it's not perfect, which is what Einstein was talking about in theory of relativity. So yes, gravity doesn't resolve all the issues, but gravity, up until the theory of relativity, was the theory that had the fewest number of assumptions in it. So Newton's law of gravity, and when he wrote his books about that, had the fewest number of assumptions at the time. Then Einstein came along with his theory of relativity, and it has even fewer assumptions, and it more accurately explains the phenomenon that we see when it comes to atoms and things along that line. That's why it's the commonly accepted theory now, because it's fewer assumptions and it more accurately describes our observations. I mean, not saying that gravity doesn't exist and we throw the whole gravity, but gravity isn't enough of an explanation when it comes to subatomic particles, and when it comes to so it doesn't work when you're talking about really small things and really, really large things. The theory of gravity breaks down, but as far as everyday purposes, theory of gravity and the force of gravity, as far as we can tell, seems to be pretty consistent, which is why you can use it for physics and things along those lines. So it's not completely thrown out, it is still valid. It's just the theory of relativity is more valid, and it's used in more situations. It's more useful. Why is it getting darker, like, repeatedly? Like, my camera keeps getting darker for some unknown reason.
Yeah, I just noticed that your face is getting, like, extremely red. I was like, what? Do you have like a sunburn, or is your camera being
No,
weird?
no, my camera is like losing focus. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, so the but in philosophy, it's the same kind of thing. Is the argument with the fewest number of assumptions and the most, the most useful argument, or the argument with the most support, should be the one that is accepted, which is why things change over time, because as we get new information, or as we come up with new thought processes, like, oh, hey, here's a supporting argument for this particular position that we didn't consider before, and now this position is more robust than its opposition, and so then that will sway someone's opinion. If they're like, oh, okay, so this, let's say that there are two, granted, with philosophy, it's not always just the quantity, it's also the quality of certain arguments. But for now, I'm focusing on quantity. So if there are two arguments for, let's say, the morality of murder, and saying yes, there are two arguments that say murder is moral, and these are the arguments that we haven't found a refutation for. They stand. I don't know if that actually, if they're, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there can be any arguments that soundly defend murder as being a moral thing to do, but I'm just using that as kind of a, because it's generally understood that murder is immoral. I mean, well, I've had conversations where people try to argue against that, but I'm going with the premise that murder is immoral, and if there are two arguments that we cannot refute, that we cannot pull apart, that are not proven to be fallacies, but they seem to support or be in favor of murder being moral, and there are 15 arguments that are valid and sound that support murder being immoral, well, then any rational person looking at the situation, just by the pure volume of sound arguments that can support, murder being immoral, should come to the conclusion, okay, yeah, murder is immoral. There's more evidence to support that. There's more backing for that. There's fewer assumptions, because if you're talking about from the philosophical understanding, the more solid arguments for something, the less assumptions for something there are. Because because if you can, there are certain things that people just accept because they're like, well, yeah, sure, or whatever. It's wrong to abandon your child, and people just kind of do that. But if they don't have the arguments to support that, well, they still, right? Because this is something people have been doing for centuries. Like, it's not common for a parent to abandon their child and let it die of starvation. It's more common that a parent would sacrifice themselves for their child. So but even back then, before, when language was just starting, or before, and maybe possibly even before language was ever developed, this was still the common behavior, even though people didn't have a good foundation as to why this is the case. But as philosophy has grown and adapted, and as we've more fine-tuned our arguments in there, we now have, a whole toolbox full of arguments saying, okay, a parent should take care of their child. It's their moral obligation. I'm not going to go into all of that because there's too many books and too much about this whole. I don't think this is something that should be too controversial, hopefully. Although I'm pretty sure in the comments and on Twitter, people are going to say, oh, no, parents have no obligation to take care of their children. Anyway, the vast majority of philosophers who are credited, like credible philosophers, have made arguments about about parents being responsible for their kids, at least when it comes to the subject of morality. Those philosophers who wrote about it were talking about the parents' obligation to take care of their young. It seems to be the best way of sustain a society and to have a society advance. So there's a lot of, even people who are talking about, like, from the utilitarian perspective, talk about child rearing being an important function of being a parent. So we have all of these arguments to support that parents should take care of their kids. And we have very few, if any, arguments for the opposite of that. As far as I know, any argument that would be saying, nope, parents don't have to take care of their kids, those arguments would probably have some sort of fallacy in them. And this is how we come to moral absolutes, which I'm calling moral objective morality. I don't want to get into that situation, but understanding these principles is how we determine what should be considered the truth and what should be considered false. So if we relate this back to Kavanaugh, you have to take kind of the similar concepts, and you're like, okay, so we don't know what happened in 1982. I wasn't even born back then. Or was it 83 that Ford said this happened? I don't... She's not
82.
even she's not even sure of the year.
They're reporting it was 1982, so
Yeah.
you would have been... Weren't you born in 85 or something?
Yeah, I was born in 85, so this was before I was born, so I have no way of knowing what actually occurred in 1982. Aside from reviewing what other people are saying about 1982. Like what Kavanaugh and Blasey Ford are reporting about the incident, and what other people who were alive at the time are reporting about the incident, and what other people who went to school with them are reporting about the incident. So that's the only way I can determine what is true is based off of indirect observations from people who either were there or at least have the likelihood of being there. Right? It's because I can't say, oh, well, Kavanaugh definitely didn't claim that, or didn't rape her. I was there and I witnessed. I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I wasn't even born. You have to, I can't have also not been born and also be at a party at 1982 where I saw Kavanaugh not rape Ford. Those two ideas are completely absurd, right? The idea that I witnessed that prior to being born. So, in order to figure out the truth, we have to understand that there is a truth, that something definitely occurred, and it's objective, that it's independent of the people who observed it, it's independent of anybody's personal testimony. It happened, what happened is unchangeable. That's another aspect that has to be certain for the truth. Like, the past is unchangeable and fixed. It's not like Hitler started World War II when he invaded Poland, and also that could be completely made up and nonsense. And it's like, well, and that may not actually be accurate because it was accurate at the time, but it's been 50 years, so it may not be accurate now. That completely throws out whole sections of human knowledge if we can't trust history as being consistently accurate. So it has to be fixed, as in it didn't change. If World War II started when Hitler and the Nazis invaded Poland, then that's how it's going to be from here until the end of the earth. That was the start of World War II. I mean, I don't know if there was any other major incident, but that was, from everything I've read, that's the reason that was the main, I guess, the catalyst for World War II was that invasion. So that's not going to change. It's not like, oh, no, never mind. It's been, it's not like in the year 2025, Hitler invaded India first. That's not going to happen. The history is not going to change so that in 20 years from now, Hitler would have invaded Russia first. That doesn't happen. So history has to be fixed, which means if somebody's telling you something, if somebody tries to convince you that Germany, the first country they invaded, was Zimbabwe, then you're like, wait a minute, what? Even if they try to tell you that the first country they invaded was Italy, even if they try to tell you the first country they invaded was, I don't know, what else is that around that area, like Israel, or, well, let me guess, Israel wasn't around at the time, so they couldn't have invaded Israel. But Germany invaded what is now the Ukraine. If they try to claim that, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't coincide with all the other information, with all these history books, with everything else we know about the past. All the other things about the past are consistent with what actually occurred. You're the only one making a claim that doesn't add up, so I can refute your claim as being false. That's the thought process here. And so, relating that to Kavanaugh, if we know the past is fixed, and we know an incident can't be changed today, it was the only time it could have been changed was when it was occurring back then in 82. And so if we know that three other people who were claimed to have been at that party either denied the party happened or denied the incident happening, then the one person who's making a claim that it did happen, well, that's the same as a person saying that Germany invaded Zimbabwe. Like, we should treat it exactly the same as that. He's like, wait a minute, no, everybody else is disagreeing with you. You're the sole outlier, and their memories of 1982 all line up with each other, but they don't line up with yours. So you should be the one that is dismissed as being untrue. That's how this works, and that's how people are supposed to think about these things. And yet, for some reason, Democrats don't understand any of that. And they're like, but she's telling the truth, and everybody else is just lying or covering it up or doesn't remember accurately, and that she's the only one who knows what happens for sure. That's a lot of faith to put into one person. Because imagine if that was somebody who was coming on to CNN trying to tell us that Hitler invaded Zimbabwe first. And, well, if that were true, then that means that Kavanaugh can't be elected. And then CNN was like, oh yeah, then it must be true. It must be true that Germany invaded. Like, that's the level of insanity. I mean, I'm using the Germany invaded Zimbabwe to start World War II because of its just completely outlandish nature, to highlight the absurdity of the situation. And that's reductio ad absurdum, which is a valid form of argument and reasoning, where you take the underlying principle at play, or the underlying opposition's argument, and take it to its logical extent. And the idea is, if there's a crack at the small things, so the crack at the small things, the longer that goes, the more that crack is going to widen. So there's a crack in the small things, and over time, or as the situation gets more extreme, that crack widens until you can't ignore that crack anymore. You're like, no, that crack's not there. But when you're talking about the smaller principles, or when you're talking about the smaller incidents, it's easier to overlook those cracks. So the reductio ad absurdum basically takes a wedge and pries that open and be like, see, look, there's the hole, there's the gaping flaw in that person's reasoning or their argumentation or their, whatever it is you're like, here's the big flaw. This is why this is the incorrect way to looking at it. And so reductio ad absurdum, the other way you can do this is you can create parallel situations of if 50 historians all state that Germany and Hitler and the Nazis invaded Poland to start World War II, and the 51st historian says no, he started by invading Zimbabwe, you ignore that outlier. And when you apply that to the same situation of the Blasey Ford, if 4 of the witnesses say that incident didn't happen, or they don't remember it happening, they have no evidence to support her, they don't even remember that party, they don't side with her, and so all of their statements can all be true together, right? So let's see. Kavanaugh says it didn't happen. Judge says it didn't happen. PJ says he done, at least, I don't know if he said it didn't happen, but he says, I don't remember being at the party, or at least something along those lines. I didn't read his exact statement. And then Ford's friend, the other woman in the situation, I forget her name, Kaiser or something like that, mentions she doesn't remember being at a party, and she doesn't even know Kavanaugh. That was her statement. And you're like, all 4 of those things can all be true at the same time. There's no contradiction between those 4 statements. The only contradiction comes in when Ford says that this definitely happened. Yeah. She would contradict with Kaiser's statement. She would contradict with PJ's statement. She would contradict with Mark Judge's statement. She would contradict with Kavanaugh's statement.
Yeah, and this whole thing is such a disaster. And did you see what Blue had shared about this whole drinking game or sex game thing in the chat in your chat?
I don't know if that was in my chat, but yeah, so there is the other guy, one of the guys who was in their high school, has it in his yearbook that he created this game called Devil's Triangle, and then he released his official statement. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Bernard McCarthy. So in his yearbook, yeah. So you can see, yeah, right there where it says 4 semicolon Devil's Triangle 9 founder of the name. So that 9 is actually a typo. That's supposed to be an open parenthesis. That confused me a little bit at first. I was like, what? I don't understand what these numbering, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's supposed to be an open parenthesis because there is a closed parenthesis, but there's no opening one. So yeah, that's a little bit of a typo in the yearbook. But it's Devil's Triangle, and then in parentheses it says founder of the name.
Yeah.
And then there's a semicolon, and it's lists other stuff. So
yeah.
So yeah. This is 1980s, and he's talking about in a yearbook the Devil's Triangle. Now, if you were the guy that coined the term Devil's Triangle to refer to a threesome where 2 guys bookend a woman, would you be bragging about that in your high school yearbook?
Yeah.
Would they even let that into a high school yearbook? Right?
Yeah.
They would ask you, oh, wait, so what's this Devil's Triangle thing? Oh, it's where 2 guys, they put their penises in, one guy puts his penis in, the woman's butt or in her vagina, and the other guy puts his penis in her mouth, and then they high five at the top. Oh, okay, that's fine. We'll have that in our yearbook. We'll include that in the yearbook. No. That doesn't make it past the editor.
Yeah.
But drinking game, okay, yeah, Devil's Triangle, like, odds are they would be familiar with it if it was played enough around the area.
Yeah. Oh, and here's the official statement. So, this is to Dianne Feinstein.
Mm-hmm.
So, dear Chairman and Grassley and Ranking Member Feinstein, we are classmates of Brett Kavanaugh's from Georgetown Prep, a Jesuit high school in Washington, D.C. area. We write to clear up any misunderstanding about the phrase Devil's Triangle that appeared in our 1983 high school yearbook, including on our individual yearbook pages. The phrase that was the subject of questioning at Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing last week and has since been discussed in the media. Devil's Triangle was a drinking game we came up with in high school. It was a variation on the game Quarters, and then it basically just explains that it is a drinking game. And if the dude coined the term himself, I'm going to believe him as he was the he was the guy who made the term. And there's 4 signatures at the bottom that actually that corroborate that.
Yeah. So all those people agree that it was a drinking game and that they were talking about a drinking game, and it says right there at the bottom, has no sexual no sexual meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, none whatsoever. So it's like that to me just really hurts their case. The other terms, I don't know who originated them in terms of like where they're like, oh, this is a sex game and whatnot.
Yeah. So there's something about boof, and something about, what was the other one? The F's, right? The multiple F's. As far as what that stands for, they made that up. Like the multiple F's. I don't know if Kavanaugh is telling the truth about. Oh, it's just because he's making fun of the wind up of that one guy. And there's all kinds of inside jokes. It doesn't seem like, to me, it doesn't quite make sense, but it does seem plausible as an explanation. But what people have attributed that to, like, wait, again, how does that make it past the editor of the yearbook? I worked on my school's yearbook. I was part of the journalism crew, and we worked on the yearbook. If people put something in there that seemed questionable, we would ask them about it. They're like, oh, wait, what do you mean by this phrase? You wouldn't put, if you knew that stood for something sexual or something a lot, like, I forget what they called it, like, oh, what was the, because it's like 6 F's in a row, and it's something about, like, fornicating, fucking, and, like, I mean, it gets like, just it goes beyond that to start talking like, wait a minute, you're talking about like some things that are like outright illegal in here. How would you? Why would that be a part of this? That is the realm of absurdity. So as far as here's the other thing about the Devil's Triangle. Like, that didn't enter the common vernacular till decades later. So
Yeah.
I don't know why people are saying, oh, Devil's Triangle, that's definitely referring to a threesome. Oh, here's another thing that utterly pisses me off, talking about the so even if Devil's Triangle is referring to a threesome, right? Even if that were the case, not rape. And yet, I forget who it was talking about the Devil's Triangle. Like, I don't know if it was somebody in the chat or if it was somebody on Twitter or something, but they were talking about Kavanaugh as a rapist because he's perpetuating the idea of threesomes, and you're like, a threesome is consensual. Like, to say that it is, if you have a threesome, it's automatically rape. What? No, I know plenty of people who have had these Devil's Triangles, been involved in it, not rape because the woman actually asked for it. And I forget what I was. Oh, I think this was on Twitter where I posted, Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake and Lady Gaga. They've got a music video. This is on SNL where they're talking about, it's not gay if it's in a three-way. Right? You remember that song, right? The Golden Rule?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
oh my lord.
Where were the people crying out that they were, these people are perpetuating rape culture? And I'm like, well, that's a Devil's Triangle, right? One woman, two guys having sex at the same time. That's rape culture. And I'm like, threesomes are not rape culture. Devil's Triangle would not be a rape culture reference. Even if it was talking about threesomes. That's not support for rape or for gang rapes. That's completely bizarre to me. How people could say, this is talking about threesome, so he's definitely a rapist. That would mean anybody who has ever had a threesome is also a rapist, which, that means people in the porn industry, they do a lot of those. Nope, apparently they're all rapists. What?
That would be a fucking awesome thing, like if someone like made that a hashtag or somehow that meme.
Yeah, porn stars are equals rapist. What?
I can just see that happening, and honestly, that's terrifyingly, like, I can imagine, like, if they could make something about rape culture and that involving dogs at the park, then they can make it even dumber.
Well, here's the funny thing about that. So you're talking about this it was a peer-reviewed study that was submitted to a feminist journal, and the feminist journal reviewed it, talked to the writers of it, like, because there was a little bit of a back and forth reviewing it and editing and all of that sort of thing before they finalized it and published it in the journal. They published it in the journal, and the only reason they retracted it is not because they disagreed with what was being said in it, or not because it was absolute idiocy. Like, it was written intentionally to be so crazy no one would accept it, and yet it was accepted into this journal. They were trying to deliberately make it outlandish. Like, that was the goal. Their goal is reductio ad absurdum. I'm going to make this so absurd, rational people could not look at this as a legitimate paper. And yet, the feminists looked at it and were like, sounds good to me. The only reason they rejected it is on the credentials of the people submitting it. What? Your only problem with that article was that the people submitted it weren't actual PhDs and weren't who they claim to be. You agree with the ideas being expressed in it. You don't have any problem with that. The only problem you have is it was submitted by people who were claiming to be other people. In what world does this, that is, how do these people get in charge of being in accepting what goes into a journal and what doesn't? Those people, I would not trust them with like menial tasks, right? I would trust someone who is actually mentally retarded to do a job over the people who run that paper. I was like, yeah, if it's something as simple as cleaning out my trash cans, I'm like, oh, hey, you're mentally retarded? Okay, that's cool. I can at least teach you how to empty the trash, and I can rely on you to do it consistently. People who run that paper, I'd be like, okay, so it's a choice between someone who's mentally retarded and someone who accepted a paper about dogs humping in a park being acceptance of rape culture. I'm gonna go with the person who's mentally deficient. I mean, I'm not saying that as a knock against them. I'm just saying it's when you would think you would accept someone like. The idea is you should accept someone who has all of their mental faculties as being more responsible or more likely to be able to perform the job that you're assigning them. Nope. Not with those people.
Yeah. The feminists there they had to have been functionally retarded. Like I'm pretty sure most people could see something like that and they're like, okay, that's fucking stupid. That there's no way that's like legitimate. I mean,
Yeah.
the only time someone that like Darkon fell for my April Fool's video like really badly, and that was funny, and I'll always kind of poke fun at him for that. Like you could tell I was fucking around.
What was okay? So I mean, I guess I know what the punchline is because you already told me it was an April Fool's. But what was the setup?
So the setup was I had my first debate with Lapis, and I was making the April Fool's video was I'm conceding the debate. I'm saying yeah, I lost that debate. And the entire time, like just how he's speaking, I'm like everything is sexist, racist, transphobic, and he's like, "Are you serious, S-Man?"
Oh, okay.
He didn't see I was joking. I'm like, "Are you?"
So it was a complete 180 after one debate with Lapis. That she wrecked you so hard. Well, whatever. She wrecked you so hard that you completely turn into an SJW. That okay.
Yeah.
Like it. Yeah. In his defense, that I have seen. I mean, maybe not the complete 180, but I have seen people like, wait, are you the same person I was just talking to? Because what you're talking about now seems like completely insane. So, yeah.
Oh
so,
my.
I mean,
yeah, it was hilarious. Just like it took several replies to him to get him to realize I'm not actually agreeing. I'm not actually a communist. Like, what the? How? I was.
You went full blown, not just full blown SJW, but full blown SJW with a commie. And commie.
A vegan, humanist, feminist.
Okay.
Like the most absurd thing you can imagine.
So yeah, so I could understand if it was just the SJW stuff, and you're like, oh well, maybe he saw some kind of information that. That's like, okay, that's more believable and plausible than my original assumption. But when you start throwing on the rest of it, like, wait a minute. At some point, you're like, no, this does not add up. There's no way that you could have, like this. So this is the other. I guess we'll try to wrap this back to the Kavanaugh situation. Is if you are so certain of something one day. And you hear evidence to the contrary, right? Or an argument to the contrary. That one thing may redirect your line of thinking because maybe you were 98% correct or 99% correct, and that one little thing shifts you. Okay, now you're on the 100% correct or whatever, or now you're closer to the truth. But there's no way that you've been going towards the truth this entire time and missed it by 180 degrees, right? If you're let's use navigation like on a map system. So if you're driving to Dallas, Texas from I'm in St. Louis, so if I'm driving to Dallas, Texas from St. Louis, and I'm traveling generally southwest, and I take a wrong turn, like a left turn or something that I was like, oh, I thought that was the road I was supposed to be in. It's going southwest. But maybe it's going a little more south than west, or maybe a little more west than south, or whatever. It's not going to get me to my destination. Well, my GPS will reroute and be like, oh. And I'm like, that, right? And then you adjust and you get back on the right track and back towards Texas, right? So there's no way that I could have been driving for 6 hours towards Texas, and then my GPS redirects and like, oh, you've been traveling 6 hours in the wrong direction. It's time to start going northeast. And I'm like, that doesn't happen. You are like, oh, hey, you took a wrong turn. You got to readjust a little bit. It's not the, oh, by the way, you've been traveling southwest for 6 hours. You've been going 6 hours in the wrong direction. So it's now going to take you 18 hours, or it's now going to take you an extra 6 hours on top of your original time to get to your destination. That doesn't happen. And that's essentially what your assertum is you're like, okay, I could be wrong on some of this stuff. I could be wrong on it's possible that I am wrong on everything. But it's not likely that I'm wrong on everything, so wrong on everything that I would completely have to go in the complete opposite direction in order to find the truth. That's not likely. It's not likely that I've been traveling southwest for 6 hours only to find, oh, nope, I gotta travel northeast for 6 hours. That's what that would kind of be an example of, is you've been traveling one direction towards your goal for this long, and yes, you've been correcting and readjusting on the way. There's no way that you've been traveling in the completely wrong direction.
Yeah.
Now, it is possible, actually, I think it's very likely that all these leftists, because they seem to be wrong not just about one thing, but they seem to be wrong about everything, and when you call them out on certain things, or when you point out the evidence and the facts, they go into full-on re-mode, right? They either do the argument ad hominems, they do, they attack your personal character rather than the argument, they post, and so this goes back to the chat, they post random memes that have nothing to do with what is going on at the point in time. Okay, you can post those, and you can think that, oh, I really stuck it to him, I pissed him off, and I'm like, or you can just be like, okay, that's kind of childish. That has nothing to do with what I just said. It's like, oh, sick burn. I'm like, not really. Okay. Yeah. So trying to relate this back to Kavanaugh. So it's possible. This goes back to let me make a broader statement about Kavanaugh. So Kavanaugh has been investigated 6 times by the FBI for various positions that he's held throughout his career. He worked in the White House. He has been a sitting justice. 6 FBI investigations. So it's possible that they missed something. It's possible that he's not as clean-cut as they thought. It's not possible that he is a serial rapist and they just kind of missed that. It's not so it is possible that maybe there was an incident where, like the Blasey Ford, that possible, right? It's possible that he might have had one incident, you know, he went too far and then maybe has been trying to live the rest of his life to make up for that. That is in the realm of possibility. It's not possible that he was involved in threesomes and gang rapes and whipping out his penis in front of people at a party in a college that the woman who accused him of that doesn't even attend. There's... It's possible that he is not, you know, super religious, pure guy, right? That is possible. But it's not possible that he is the worst human in existence, right? It's not possible that he is a... Let's see, what's the word? Like, when you... I'm trying to... So, when it came to... So let's take an example of somebody... I was going to try to use an example that I'm more familiar with, but that seems like giving away a little too information. So, let's take somebody that's well-known, so somebody's famous, like Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Mm. Jeffrey Dahmer, when they went around and interviewed his neighbors and stuff like that, they were like, oh, but he seems so nice and so, you know, clean-cut and all that sort of thing. Yeah, granted, it's possible, like, but none of them were like, that's impossible. He's a good man. I'd testify for him. Nobody was standing up on Dahmer's behalf. A lot of them were like, huh, I didn't expect that. That's oh wow, that's I never thought. But no one was coming to Dahmer's defense as saying, nope, all this stuff about him is all made up. There's no possible way he could be going around killing people and eating them. No one came to his defense on his character. And some of the people were like, you know what? I always thought there was something a little off about that guy. Right? That's the big difference here is you would see people coming out of the woodworks and like, you know, like, oh, yeah, you know what? I never thought that Kavanaugh would have done that. I never thought Kavanaugh would be a gang rapist, or I never thought Kavanaugh would have held her down and did that. But you know what? Seems plausible. Like, because that's what happened with Dahmer, right? When they started interviewing people, they were like, wow, I never expected that. But no one was saying, no, that's not true, right? No one was outright denying it. No one was testifying on behalf of his character. And that is what I'm trying to state here is no one goes from being perfect angel to being outright demon without anybody noticing, without anybody picking up on small, subtle things or on little, like, hey, you know what? Did Dahmer seem off to you? It seemed like he was really, really busy or like he was hiding something, right? I'm like, it's probably nothing. That's more likely what was going on in that situation. Is there people who, they're like, you know what? That seems kind of odd. Should we talk to someone? Should we report something? Like, no, it's probably no big deal. That is actually, like, if you go through the, testimonies, that was actually occurring in his neighborhood where people were, it was a collection of little small things that people should have got together and talked about, and then they would have been like, uh-oh, this is something, but they weren't. They were kind of burying their head in the sand and ignoring it. Now, the big difference here is Kavanaugh has the exact opposite. He has people who've known him, they are actually rallying for him. People who knew him in high school, like the 65 women, wrote letters saying, this is not the kind of person Kavanaugh is. What you're saying about him is outright false. They came to his defense. They are saying that he is a good person. And so then it's not a case of, oh, well, he was secretly a bad guy, and people were just kind of burying their heads in the sand and ignoring it. Because, so let's take the other example that's been associated with Kavanaugh. Cosby, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this was something that's brought up by Cosby's lawyer, comparing Cosby to Kavanaugh, and then there was, in the SNL skit, they did the same sort of thing, comparing Cosby to Kavanaugh. But I'm trying to draw the distinction between Kavanaugh's case and Cosby's case. When allegations came out against Cosby, people who were around him, people who were familiar with him, people who, they weren't saying, oh, no, this is, how dare you tarnish Cosby's reputation. All of them were kind of like, you know what, I always thought there was something kind of fishy, and they all kind of drew back from him. What kind of support did he have? Like, people were distancing themselves from Cosby. People who were in his inner circles, and people who, like his ex-wife and stuff like that, they're like, yep, nope, that's, you know what, I thought something was going on, I couldn't prove anything. Like, that's the big difference here. So in the Cosby situation, he was doing this and getting away with it, and people did come forward about it, because there's that's part of the reports where people were saying, yeah, he did something, and then nothing, nobody took any action. And there was other people who were just kind of like, well, that's just how it is, and then they just kind of bury their head and like, oh, just gonna turn a blind eye to that. That's just keep your head down and don't raise, don't make any waves, don't raise a fuss about this. And that's how he got away with it. He was doing things, and people were just saying, nope, you have fun with that. I'm just gonna be over in this other route. So it was people not standing up to him and not doing anything when it was reported what was going on. And it wasn't until recently that people started coming out and making these accusations that people actually started like, wait, well, hey, we should actually do something about this. We should actually start looking into this and investigating, and then more and more accusations came out. And then everybody who was turning their blind eye were like, oh, I knew this was coming. It was just a matter of time, and they're walking away from it. That's what happens when someone has a history of doing something, or when someone is trying to hide their actual character.
Yeah.
The people who should be supporting them reject them or distance themselves or, wash their hands of them. And yet, we see the exact opposite of Kavanaugh, where people are coming to his defense and saying, no, I'm willing to risk my own reputation and my own standing in the community on Kavanaugh. I'm willing to say, no, this man is who he says he is. He does what he says he does. He's like, we just saw that report there, that letter there. It was 4 people stating under felony, or under
oath.
Yeah, under oath, right? So it's under penalty of felony. So that's if they are found to be lying, they could face up to 5 years in prison just for signing their name on that letter. That's if they are lying about what they're saying, and it is proven that they are lying about what they're saying, they could be facing 5 years. Now, all you have to do is put your signature. Now, if you have the potential of going to jail if you're lying, would you sign your name to that paper? No, you would just be like, you know what, guys, you can sign that paper, but I'm not going to. Because what does it cost you to not sign that paper, right?
Yeah.
But if you do sign that paper and you know it's an outright lie, and you know Devil's Triangle was referring to threesomes that you were having in high school for whatever reason. I guess in the 80s, people were a lot more alpha in high school than people were in the high schools that I know about. Because there's a lot of crazy parties and a lot of sex going on. No 3-way gangbangs consistently in high school. I know of people getting into that stuff in college and that sort of thing, but 15 and 16, 17-year-olds, threesome, people brag about first base in high school. The idea of having consistent threesomes in high school, that seems completely bizarre to me. Like, wait, your threesomes were so common in your high school that you wrote about it in your yearbooks? That whole... So, it makes sense consistently that that's what's going on. Now, when it comes to the other people who have contradicted Kavanaugh and the other people in this situation, right? The people who are saying that Kavanaugh is guilty of sexual misconduct and of attempted rape and things along those lines. Now, Ford has an out, and this is something that didn't occur to me because, I was like, oh, well, she's definitely contradicting him. She should go to jail for committing fraud, right? Committing perjury. She's been lying to the... The thing is, she is legally safe because she is not knowingly lying. If they have the defense that she thought it was Kavanaugh and she was certain that it was Kavanaugh, but she was mistaken, then that's not perjury.
Yeah.
So if she believed that Kavanaugh attacked her and tried to rape her, then her statements are 100% accurate and she's not in jeopardy of perjury. Because as long as she believes what she's saying. If she's knowingly lying, then that's perjury. If she believes what she's saying, that's not perjury. And that's the weird part of this. Because she can make all the accusations against Kavanaugh she wants without gang of perjury. Same thing with Swetnick, right? She can... Because she never said that Kavanaugh was a participant in the gang rapes. She was just saying that gang rapes happen. She's not technically under penalty of perjury given her sworn statements. Because she can say, oh, well, that's what I believed at the time. That's what I thought was going on. That's what I thought. She can be convinced of that and not be lying about it. Lying is intentionally knowing that what you're saying is not true. So you can believe it, and like in your mind, this is the truth, and so I'm gonna keep okay, and you can do that. It is very hard to prove that either of these women knows that they are lying and does it anyway. It's very difficult to prove that both of them are willingly lying or knowingly lying. That's why they're both kind of exempt from the perjury thing. Now, for the other people who have testified on Kavanaugh's behalf, because their testimonies are specific, Well, that's the other thing. So with Ford and Swetnick, their testimonies are very vague. There is a lot of room for, well, I think, and I might, and this is what I remember. That is, they leave it very vague, and nothing is set in stone. Nothing is definitive in their statements. Well, let me, did I actually send that off? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that I did send the Google Hangouts to my brother in case he wanted to join us. But I think he might be busy on Fridays. But yes, what was I talking about? I was talking about so their statements, their sworn statements, are very, very vague. Like, I mean, even though they're giving out kind of details, they are not specific details that someone could outright refute. Aside from Kavanaugh saying that he never participated in any of that, that's the only refutation. It's not like well, you said that. I mean, that. I guess I should clarify. So Ford has had some things that have come to light that's like, ooh, that actually could qualify as perjury. Now, the claims against Kavanaugh, not so much. The claims about the reason for the second door, there's a lot of evidence for that having nothing to do with her supposed fear. The history of flying, the fear of flying, like her ex-boyfriend. So this is something that came out, I think, so we talked last Friday, did we? Or was it last Tuesday?
I think it was I thought it was last Thursday.
Okay, so we talked last Thursday. So this is stuff that has come out this week where Christine Ford's ex-boyfriend wrote a letter under penalty of perjury, because they were dating for over a period of 6 years, and during that 6 years, she was flying around to different islands in Hawaii on a passenger plane, or on a what's that called? On a private plane, right? So these planes that fit about 12 people, very, very bumpy, very small. These little small planes, not commercial airlines, right? These are propeller planes. If you have a fear of flying so much that you won't get on a commercial jetliner to go to Washington unless you, like, oh, well, eventually I got over it and I had to force myself to get on an airline and come down to Washington, right? Or Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
If you have a fear of flying like that, there's no way you're getting on one of these small planes. No freaking way. Like, I have no fear of flying in commercial airlines. I'm not going to get on a propeller plane unless I have to. Like, I'm like, no, I think I'd rather get on a boat and I'd take the extra time, because those things are, those, if you hear about a plane crash, it's usually one of those, right? Those are more likely to crash. Those are, barely keeping in the sky type of aircraft.
Yeah.
Those are not very trustworthy. If you have a fear of flying, there's no way in hell you're getting on one of those.
Yeah.
That, like people who like, so was that the A-Team, right? Where B.A. Baracus was so afraid of flying, whatever, they had to knock him out and then put him on a plane. Right? If that's the fear of flying that was kind of espoused by Ford, you can't get them inside a small plane. It just doesn't happen. Someone with that level of fear, which is what she is trying to claim, is that she's afraid of flying so much that she won't come down to see that her attacker comes to justice. I was like, you know what? Even if you have a fear of flying, you could put yourself on a commercial plane and go down just to see that justice is served. I'm just going to go on I have this level of fear of flying, but I'm just going to go on a luxury or an elective type of activity in these small planes. What? So that right there, I think, could be used as evidence of actual, like, okay, you lied about this because you have no history of fear of flying. You have been on planes this many times, and you've been on small planes. You fly more than the usual person. You fly more than the average American. How can you have a fear of flying and also fly more than the majority of the population of the U.S.? Like, I don't know about how many times she travels, but it's like it's the number of flights that she has taken over her life. I'm like, you parallel the frequent flyer business mile or business guys, right? The people who are going to places every weekend and flying all over the country. It's like, yeah, the people who have like the the gold memberships with their airline. Like Ford probably has one of those. I mean, as much as she's been on planes, I was like, yeah, you travel like somebody, and she also travels for her job, like by plane. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, she probably does have like a gold membership with Southwest Airlines or American Airlines or something like that. Southwest? I don't know why I said that like that. Southwest. I can talk English.
Yeah.
Southwest.
Humane lisp.
Southwest.
Humane lisp.
Yeah, I don't usually lisp. I don't know why that came out that way. Anyway.
It sounded rather gay.
Hey, you take that back, faggot. Wait, no, what? Anyway, oh, well, and then now this is demonetized and deplatformed, and so everything else that we said throughout this entire conversation is completely dismissed by those half jokes. All right. Well, they're not full jokes anyway. Right? Because I mean, everybody's at least half gay, right? Wait, is that not? No. All right, it's completely completely sidetracked. Sorry for that derailment. Let's see. The other thing. Okay, so the other thing about the boyfriend's letter, where he's talking about he specifically, when they were dating, he found a place for her that was 500 square meters, like a room, one door, like a really cramped small space. This is something that was in his report. If she's claiming, like she does, that she is so afraid of small spaces and has to have 2 exits, which is the reason for the construction, which what led to the therapy that brought up this whole situation. What, like a 500-foot square room? That's smaller than the room that I'm in right now. And I'm like, somebody who has, and like my room only has the 1 exit, but that is a very small room. And if you are a person who has to have 2 doors, that's not gonna work. If you have to have 2 doors on your 18,000 or 1,800 square foot house because you have to have those 2 exits, there's no way you're gonna live for several years in a space a third of the size with only 1 exit.
Yeah.
That just doesn't. He also said that she didn't mention anything about sexual assault, didn't mention anything about this incident. They were dating for 6 years. They lived together for a period of time, at least that's my understanding of it based on the testimony. And he's saying, no, she has no fear of flying. She has never talked about needing 2 doors. She never mentioned anything like this. He's outright refuting the statement she made. And the FBI, so those sorts of things. So while I don't think it can be considered perjury on her part for thinking that Kavanaugh was the person who attacked her and possibly raped her, but she can be held accountable for declaring that she needs 2 exits to a room or a door in her house or something like that, because she knows that that's outright false. Because according to the boyfriend's statement, and also research online and stuff like that other people have been doing, the purpose for that extra door was to have Google interns rent from her. So it was a business sort of thing, and they also did couples therapy or something, and that was the business entrance. So that blows the whole I need to have 2 exits because I'm so scared and because it's so traumatic. That is an outright lie, based on this information. The whole I'm too scared to fly and yet I fly all the time, there's definite evidence against that, and that could be used as a perjury case against her, and that would probably be successful. I think both of those would be successful against her if they were taken to court, and that she could be, I don't know if it's 5 years per incident, or if it's just, hey, I don't know how that works, but both of those incidents could be used as examples of her perjury in her statement before Congress. Yeah, that's. But as far as the Kavanaugh is my attacker, not so much. Because it is very possible that she could have been attacked in high school, and she thought that her attacker was Brett Kavanaugh. It's very difficult to prove that didn't happen, and that, she doesn't think it was Kavanaugh. That she might think, for a matter of fact, like she said, 100%, that it is Kavanaugh. But her thinking that is not technically a lie. Her saying that the reason for the 2 doors was her fear of, due to the attack, yeah, that's an outright lie. There's enough evidence to say that is an outright lie. To say that she didn't want to come before Congress because she's afraid of flying, even when she has no history of it, never talked about it with anybody, has never expressed it, and has actually gone on planes and flown in situations that even people who have no fear of flying would be hesitant to do. That is example or evidence of her lying before Congress. So, what was the other thing that came out? There was something else like, the FBI wrapped up their investigation. So it's officially done, and they found no evidence of anything.
Yeah, and now the Senate is going to put it to. There's a couple key senators who are they're going to be the ones determining how this goes. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
She's voting she voted against confirming him. Which, if she didn't, she would lose re-election in 2022. She's one of the weakest Republicans in the Senate in terms of her electoral history, if you look at it. Especially in a state like Alaska. I think Collins voted. I think she did vote to confirm Kavanaugh.
Okay, so they didn't vote yet. I think the vote happens tomorrow morning, but they're saying that they will vote, right? So they will vote no, and they're declaring ahead of time the way they will vote, right?
Yeah. They've. As for Manchin, I think Joe Manchin, who's the most conservative Democrat in the Senate, I think may vote against voting to confirm Kavanaugh, if I'm not mistaken. Jeff Flake, I think, did say he will vote to confirm.
Yeah. As far as I know, he said he would confirm him, based on the FBI closing their investigation.
Yeah. So if you were, let's say HUMANE was a senator from Missouri. Let's just say HUMANE was a senator. Would you vote to confirm Kavanaugh, or would you reject his confirmation?
Oh, sorry, I was just looking at. So, sorry, what was the question? Would I vote? Yes.
Yeah, would you? If you were a senator, would you vote to confirm him or reject?
Yeah, I definitely would. I would have to at this point in time. So, yeah, if I was in a position where my vote determined whether he was on the Supreme Court or not, because of the way that this whole situation has been handled, I would have to vote yes. Now, if they had just talked about the issues and his judicial, his decision, the things that he's written about the Supreme Court and all that sort of thing, if they had just left it to that, if they had not dragged his name through the mud, then I could vote no and be like, okay, yeah, I'm voting based on the principles that, yeah, I don't think he deserves to be a Supreme Court justice. I think we need somebody else in there. Actually, from what I hear about Bennett, seems to be like a better candidate according to what I understand of the Constitution and the type of judge that I would want in there. But because of the way he has been so thoroughly, dragged through the mud and just completely, torn apart, it's to not give him the Supreme Court after that would be a huge disservice to him and his family. Because if my vote and I vote no or whatever, and that's the vote that keeps him out of the Supreme Court, his career is over, and everyone will forever view him as a rapist or as a sexual deviant who is not, like, his judgments would be completely rendered inert and all. I think we talked about this last week. So if he doesn't make it to the Supreme Court, I mean, his life and his career is over. The only avenue forward, because of the tactics the Democrats used against him. The only avenue forward is on the Supreme Court for him.
Yeah. So Ham in the chat, he says Kavanaugh automatically fails as a candidate for the Supreme Court on his stance on the Fourth Amendment. In my live chat on my end of the stream, I will say this: if I was a United States senator, I would vote. Probably, I would vote in general against Kavanaugh being on the court because didn't you say didn't he isn't he an originalist? Like he holds an originalist view of the Constitution.
Yeah. So he's kind of. I mean, he does talk about the Constitution, and he does talk about being an originalist. Although some of the things he talks about when it comes to executive power and that sort of thing. So he is more of a technical constitutionalist, like the way it is written now and the way that it's been interpreted in the past and the way. So he is more along those lines. He's not so much concerned with the intent of things that are in the Constitution. Like, so my preferred type of judge would be someone who goes back to the writings of the founders of the country, the people who wrote the Constitution, and look at what they were saying about it and their reasoning behind it. Kavanaugh doesn't seem to do that. He seems to be more focused on what happened after the Constitution was ratified. So, how it was interpreted since it's been ratified, how people have looked at it, and the way it is written as it is, which can lead to problems. So this is something I talk about frequently, is like I recommend everybody who get at least once read through the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers, because those get you into the mindset of the founding fathers and what they were thinking when they wrote the Declaration the way that they did. Now, the words inside the Declaration seem pretty cut and dry in the way that they are worded, but a lot of people have been misinterpreting the way that those words are written. So, like, a lot of people will look at the Second Amendment and talk about, oh, that's just talking about a militia, right? That's not talking about every citizen. That's just, you have to be a member of a militia to own a firearm. But if you look at what they were writing when they wrote, like, so there are other writings around that topic, when, like, saying, no, every individual in the U.S. is part of the militia. That was their firm belief. It's like, you don't need to sign up and be part of this official militia. Every single individual is a member of the militia. That was their mindset when they wrote the Second Amendment. And if you don't go back and read their mindset and their writings at the time, and you just look at the Second Amendment, you can walk away with the interpretation, oh, that's not for all citizens. That's only for citizens who are in a regulated militia. And that would be a valid understanding, given the way it is written and given the way language has changed over time. And I think Kavanaugh is that second type, where he's like, okay, looking at the way it is written and the way language is used now, this is how I would interpret the Constitution. And that, to me, creates a problem, because I'm like, you're not looking at the principle, you're just looking at the wording of the law. You're looking at the way it's... So it's possible to misinterpret the intent that way. So I think that Kavanaugh is kind of that way when viewing the Constitution, based on the stuff that I've read about his interpretation of it, which is why he's talking about... and I agree with his position that the president should not have ongoing investigations into him, because that's the job of Congress. That is why we have a system of what's the word? I'm drawing a blank on it. Impeachment. Sorry, yeah, impeachment.
Yeah.
So that's why we have the entire impeachment process for presidents. Is it's not supposed to be some the CIA or the FBI or some kind of law enforcement investigating the president. First of all, because the president is the executive, or is the chief executive. He is the one pulling the strings at the FBI, or at least he should be the one pulling the strings of the FBI and the CIA. He's the final authority when it comes to what they can and can't do, and who gets appointed over the heads of those organizations. Those are organizations that he is supposed to be running. So that the impeachment process serves two two services here. First, if the president is in charge of the FBI and the FBI is loyal to the president could investigate himself and find nothing. Oh, well, like, hey, look, the president could be killing babies and burying them in the backyard of the White House, and the FBI investigates, and the president, has the FBI in his back pocket, and the FBI says, oh, nope, we didn't find anything, even though there's, countless bodies buried in the back of the White House. The FBI didn't find anything. Oh, that means it's good to go. And the other side of that is if the FBI, like it seems to be right now, is not loyal to the president and is actively loyal to his opposition, the FBI right now is investigating 2+ years and found absolutely nothing concerning Russia collusion or any of this sort of thing. And they're operating, as far as we can tell, I mean, this is speculation on my part, but I mean, all the evidence seems to be backing this up, that they are investigating this on behalf of the Democrats. And you're like, well, the impeachment process serves as a protection against a president who does not have the FBI on his behalf, who the FBI is actually being used as a political tool to try to dig up dirt and try to find something about and trying to subvert the system and trying to undermine his presidency, which that seems to be what's going on right now. The impeachment process is independent of the executive branch because it happens all within the legislative branch, which is equal in power to the executive and has the authority to keep the executive in check. So the legislative, if they're going to try to investigate the president and undermine his presidency, that's their job. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be keeping the president in check. They're also supposed to be completely independent of what the president, they're completely outside of his authority as the executive, because those two branches are supposed to keep each other in check. That's why we have the three separate branches. Is the judicial is supposed to keep the legislative and the presidency and the executive in check, and the executive is supposed to keep the legislative and the judicial in check. And what's the last one? I got the legislative is supposed to keep the judicial and the executive in check. It's their job to make sure that the other side is not overstepping its bounds and make sure that the other side is on its up and up. The legislative has every incentive to investigate the president if they think he's doing something wrong. And yet, for some reason, they keep trying to defer it all to the FBI. And you're like, that's not... The FBI, if anything, the FBI should be loyal to the president. So you should never want to defer your authority to investigate the president or investigate his nominees to the executive branch, because that takes it out of your power, out of your area of control. That's why I was watching these, the hearings and all that, and I'm like, why do they keep requesting an FBI investigation? That's like saying, I mean, that's... You have all the power right now in this investigation. Why would you defer it to a third party? Right? That's the whole, if you want something right, do it yourself. Why would you ever give that power or that authority to a third party who you don't know if they would do it right or not? Because if you're going to investigate it, you're going to investigate it thoroughly, and you're going to look under every rock. If you actually think there's something behind Kavanaugh and you have the power to investigate, you are going to investigate. You're going to look, if he even blew his nose the wrong way. I don't know if there's a way to do that, but yeah, you're going to investigate every little detail. Now, if you're saying, the FBI should investigate, you're relying on the FBI to do the investigation as thoroughly as you would on your team. That's asinine. Okay. I do have a comment or a chat that I have to address, so I did reply to him in the chat, but this is unrelated to what we're currently talking about. But so Rookie11 asked me, hey, thoughts on Kraut coming back? I heard you say at one point he should never come back and shun forever, and I still am of that persuasion. So I did respond to Aspie's video on Kraut. So, because Kraut did make a video, and he's talking about Coach Red Pill, and so his delivery of that in his video on Coach Red Pill, I don't know if I made a video talking about it, but I know I've gone extensively on Twitter. I've talked about this ad nauseum, that Coach Red Pill is a bad guy. Coach Red Pill, I don't know why anybody trusts him. He is a sleazy, he is not honest in the slightest. And when he talks about people doxing him, like, he had his name on his YouTube channel. He has his company's logo on all of his YouTube channels. It took me 5 seconds to discover his actual name. That's not something that is doxing, because he's associated his channel with his name. That's 2 degrees of separation. That is not... So when somebody is doxing, right? So I've made videos about this, and I've criticized Bering and AIU, so I need to clarify what doxing actually entails. Doxing is putting 2 separate bits of information together that were not linked by the individual. So in my instance, I have linked my Humane Mind channel and YouTube name with my real life name. Humane Mind, Timothy Joseph. Same person. I've made that clear. Alright? That's not to say, to say my name would not be doxing me. Now, there are places on the internet that have my name and my phone number. Now, I have not linked those. A Google search of my name will not reveal my phone number. You have to go into a space dedicated to why I have my name and number associated with each other. You have to go into one of those databases and specifically look up my phone number, right? So this is not something that I have made available on there, right? So the Coach Red Pill released his video. He's got the name of his business on there. You go and look up the name of his business. The owner of that business is his name. That is all connected for you. My phone number, or the link to where you can look up my phone number, is not anywhere on my YouTube channel. My physical address, I've made reference to St. Louis, I've made reference to Washington when I live there. My physical address, it's out there on the internet for people who are looking for it, but I haven't personally linked those 2 bits of information. I have not posted my company, which you can look at and find my address. Like, I haven't linked those to my videos. I haven't put those 2 together. So if you were to release my real name and my phone number together, that would be a violation of my privacy, and that would be doxing me, because I haven't done those 2 together. So I guess I should specify here.
Yeah.
In association with my YouTube channel, right? If you say, hey, this person is this, has this name and has this phone number and is Humane Mind. If you were to link all 3 of those together, that's where it becomes doxing. Because I've linked my Humane Mind with my real life name, but not Humane Mind with my phone number. If you link those 2, actually, that may be a bit of exaggeration. I think I may have actually done that when it comes to the fun fair stuff. I think I may have, I know I have not linked my physical address. So that's where it would become doxing. So if you have proof, if you can point out 2 places where I linked my YouTube channel and my name and my contact information, okay, granted, that might be out there. I may have done that, and then I can't claim doxing on that. But I do know that my physical address is not associated with Humane Mind, and when it is associated with my real name, it is for purposes other than my YouTube channel. You're talking about, public records and things along those lines. So you have to be inside those databases looking up my information. So for anybody else who isn't me, to post my address in association with the Humane Mind tag, that would be doxing. So that's where I need to draw those distinction is Coach Red Pill linked all that stuff together. He can't claim that, oh, I never linked those. I'm like, no, you clearly put those 3 together. It's 2 degrees of separation. On my account, there is no 2 degrees of separation in that same vein. Yeah. So because there are several degrees of separation, and I went to, not great lengths. That's not, but I went through specific processes to make sure that information was only available to those who require it for specific purposes. To make it publicly available, I haven't made it publicly available. Like, I have not made my address publicly available. It's on specific databases, on specific networks for specific purposes. My address is not public information. Coach Red Pill put his company out there as public information, and his company has his name out there as public information. That's the big difference. So, but it's going back to Kraut himself. So when it comes to Coach Red Pill, Kraut is spot on, and all of his criticisms of Coach Red Pill, I firmly agree with. I was making those same claims when I started investigating that back in October. So he did find a little bit of information that I didn't have, but I think that was just kind of overkill and not necessary. But there's a lot of information about Coach Red Pill where he's a sleazy person. He's a sleazy scumbag, and he is not honest with his subscribers. He is not honest with anybody on YouTube. Now, as far as Kraut goes, I don't think he made any missteps when it comes to Coach Red Pill. He made a lot of missteps when it comes to the other people that he had targeted with his system, because there were specific people on his secondary server or his secret server. I got to go back to this. He had 2 servers, and Braving Ruin, or whatever that moron's name is, he released the first server. The first server had jack squat on it. All right, the first server with all the Discord information that they had collected on, I sank hours into investigating that. I'm like, dude, you wasted my freaking time with this nonsense dump. And then he follows that up the day later with the actual information dump from the secure server or the secret server that has actual doxing information. Now, access to the secret server was limited. Access to the regular server, they were opening into everybody. They were like Hi, I Think I'm Real, and Kasara, and some black guy, and everybody was invited to that thing. So, I mean, there's people who had no idea what it was about and what was going on that were invited to that primary server. And there was nothing on there. Absolutely nothing. It was a bunch of jokes and stupid nonsense that had no doxing information, The secret server was limited, so Jeff Holiday was on there, and Kraut was on there. And I don't remember any other YouTube names, and there's a bunch of other, scientists or whatever, scientists. I don't know who those people were or what their credentials are, but the entire purpose of that server was incorrect, because they're trying to disprove race realism, which that right there, it shows that Kraut went off on the deep end. Okay, so I am not saying that a race is superior to any other race or anything like that, but there is a difference between the races. Otherwise, race is a completely useless concept. And Kraut and them seem to think that race is a completely useless concept. I'm like, well, then what the hell is a black man? That is a clear distinction. You can tell that there is a difference between a black man and a white man, and denying that is what Jeff and Kraut are seeming to do. And you're like, there's a difference between these two groups of people. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but there's a difference. All I'm doing is acknowledging a difference. And they're like, oh yeah, that you can't acknowledge any difference. I'm like, what the hell? I am not saying that we are fundamentally different when it comes to rights or fundamentally when it comes to biology. I'm just saying there is a difference between blacks and whites, which is why we identify those groups. I mean, that's just obvious based on, physical observations. It's obvious that when 2 black people have a baby, that baby is not going to be white. And if it is white, that black man is probably going to punch the woman for cheating on him. Right? I'm not saying that specifically to blacks, right? Because there's a Daniel Tosh joke about this, where he's like, some people hope that it's a boy, some people hope that it's a girl. I'm just hoping it's black. That's his, because the idea is if he's white, his girlfriend's white, if the baby's black, it's not his. He doesn't have to deal with it. It's a joke about him being a selfish, because that's kind of his humor. His entire human is about how horrible of a person he is. So anyway, it's kind of like Sunny in Philadelphia, right? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The entire joke is how horrible those characters are. The people, the people in those situations, they are the worst people ever. So Daniel Tosh's humor is kind of like that. And so he's talking about, if he's white and his girlfriend's white, if the baby's black, it's not his. She can't deny that it's hers because it came out of her. But he can say, nope, not mine. So that very fact that two white people can have a baby and it's not going to be black unless the woman is cheating. And I guess that I can't state that emphatically because supposedly there is one case of two white people having a black baby. I don't know how believable that is because I think more than likely is she's lying to him because I don't know if they've ever actually done a DNA test or anything like that. And as far as I know, for that particular, that is one instance out of millions of two white people having a black baby, or the reverse. I don't know if the reverse is true, where two black people have had a white baby. Now there are are blacks with albinism and stuff like that. So I'm going way off on a tangent here, but let me try to round this back up. So we do know that two black people having a baby together will not produce a white child. Except for maybe that 1 in 100 million case, whatever, that was reported. I don't know if that's accurate. That seems actually doubtful to me, but it's possible. Okay, that's possible. I'll leave it to the realm of possibility. But 99.99% of the time, two black people are going to have a black baby. Now, that's race realism. That's saying races are real, they are genetic. Kraut disagrees with that. Kraut has tried to fight, vehemently against that. And you're like, Kraut, you're a moron if you think that race isn't real. It's not just some social construct. Race is a genetic difference that is noticeable between various groups of people. Now, the problem is not that race is real. The problem is that people like Richard Spencer look at the differences between race and jump to conclusions about why races shouldn't associate with each other. That's completely unfounded. That's where Kraut should be focusing on. And yet Kraut is, I don't know, he's got his head up his ass or something, and is focused on we should be proving that races aren't real. No, you should be, who cares if races are real or not? I think they're real. There's plenty of evidence to support that. And there's plenty of evidence to support that there is a difference in the average IQ amongst different races. That seems irrefutable to me based on the data. If he's got data that contradicts that, I would love to hear it. So I would gladly pass that on to Stefan Monalou. Because he's been begging for that sort of information. He's like, I don't want this to be true, but all the data is pointing to this to be true, so I have to make my my analysis of the world and my solutions to problems based on this evidence. Now, if this evidence is incorrect, I would love to know, because that's going to change how we resolve these issues. So, while there are differences between the IQs of different races, I don't think that is inherently genetic. And we can see this, and I've talked about this on my very first appearance, in any mainstream type of incident, I guess more mainstream than my own channel, when I was on the War Skis. And I was talking about, there is a 15% IQ difference between sub-Saharan Africa and blacks in the U.S. That has been something that has only gone on for 200 years. And you're telling me 200 years of time is enough for a 15-point IQ difference based on genetics? That is the fastest evolution or evolutionary change ever. That if it is genetic, purely genetic, 15 IQ points is astonishing. And whatever caused that genetic difference, we should be looking for the cause of that, so we can apply it to all races and boost everybody's IQ by 15 points. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I remember I sent you a video about almost a year ago. It's been a while. But it was involving race realism and no bullshit, and there was this guy who featured a clip of you. His name,
that was the Danny Quartz. God, never mention my name. I'm in the clip, but whatever.
Yeah, and the way it was cut up, I don't know if that was the original product or if he did that intentionally, but it just showed us a clip of you for a second with you going or saying you agreed or something.
Yeah, he never anything that I said in that conversation because I talked extensively about this topic and just kind of was overshadowed by Allsup and AIU.
Oof.
But, yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, it's just I saw you in the comments section, and I was like, oh, I wonder how far onto the comments you're gonna get before they start throwing accusations of Nazism, white supremacy, and whatnot. All right, and Bacon Boy has joined us.
Okay.
So I guess you can help us steer the conversation back.
Yeah.
But
So one last thought on this. So I think Kraut is in the wrong because he's trying to refute race realism without any evidence or without any data to back that up. He's also wrong because he started actually doxing. So he started quoting or linking to what was that, Kiwi Farms, like on his secret Discord. He's got posts from Kiwi Farms. So Kiwi Farms is a notorious doxing site. And all the accusations made against Candace Owens and her social autopsy, all the actual doxing occurred on Kiwi Farms. And people like Kraut and Jeff Holiday and a lot of others still reference Kiwi Farms. And they don't... I was like, dude, if you have a problem with doxing like I do, you outright condemn Kiwi Farms. Kiwi Farms is a source of doxing. Kiwi Farms allows doxing and encourages doxing. Kiwi Farms is a bad fucking site. Do not go to Kiwi Farms. Do not support Kiwi Farms. Do not talk about them in a positive light. They are the dregs of the internet. And yet that's the sources Kraut was using, and he was revealing information about people that had nothing to do with this white supremacist notions, and that had nothing to do with people like Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer. Nothing to do with these idiots who are promoting white nationalist tendencies. People who are just talking about race realism based on the facts. And he's out there trying to expose their personal information and get their careers ruined. The other thing about that is on his server, he had Aiden Paladin's face, and they were doxing her information. And it's very likely that the entire situation with her is the result of Kraut's secret server. Because after that, she lost her position where she was a research assistant. And she has had, I don't know if you know the full details, but her channel has been kind of limping along because she now no longer has access to do those research journals, and her ability to research topics and talk about them from an academic perspective, which she does a very good job of, has been severely limited. And I blame Kraut for that. So, I don't think he should have come back, because all of the good he tried to do is vastly undermined by all of the evil that resulted from his actions. All right.
Okay.
Sorry, that was long-winded, but...
How did Kraut get mentioned back up again? Good God, I thought he was over and done with.
No, somebody in my chat mentioned it.
Yeah, he did come back recently. Not too recently, but he did come back a
couple of weeks. I think
Yeah.
Possibly a month by now. Time is going way too fast.
Yeah.
It's already October.
Yeah, and in a few minutes it's going to be the end of the year, and holy fuck, it feels like like this year drug out for a while. Now it's speeding the hell up.
Maybe for you, it seems like this year has gone by way too fast on all fronts, and now it's like, oh man, it's already October, and I'm trying to get Funfair finalized and financed by January, because that's my new deadline. Is I'm shooting for January, and I think I can make it this time. But there's still a lot of work between now and then. I'm like,
Yeah.
Can we make up a new month between November and December? Is everybody in agreement with that? I could use an extra 30 to 40 days. Actually, let's make it a 60-day month between November and December. All in agreement?
I agree.
We can do that.
All right.
A Kraut video every day of the month.
Wait, what?
We can do that, except you have to watch a Kraut video every day of the month.
Then I rescind my vote.
Then it's not worth it. That's gonna cost me more time than it saves me.
But so how you doing, Ham?
I'm doing all right. Just got me a bowl of chicken noodle soup that I'm gonna munch on when I'm not talking.
All right.
What would it be a stream with me if I'm not eating in the background?
No, it'd be a dead stream. But yeah. So we were just talking about what truth is and whatnot. We were kind of talking about the Kavanaugh confirmation thing.
The truth is best serves life and humanity.
Ooh. That's okay. No.
I just triggered all the Jordan Peterson lovers.
Jordan Peterson's getting a lot of shit for something he
Yeah.
said today, and I'm like, what the fuck? Oh my god.
What did he say today?
Something about if confirmed, Kavanaugh should step down. That's what his tweet said. That's all he said. He quoted someone else's tweet, and let me see if I can go find it because it's gonna.
Oh yeah, if you could link that,
Wait, that actually sounds kind of reasonable. If the rape allegations are confirmed, he should step down. Okay, that makes sense.
No. If the rape allegations are confirmed, he should go to jail, directly to jail. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. If he is confirmed, I'm not sure. I gotta see the context of this. Maybe there's more to
Let
it.
me provide the link in the Hangout chat. There we go. Okay. So here's the tweet. Here's his tweet, and the replies are all salty as fuck.
So I mean, go to that Eric Weinstein post that he is tweeting, quote tweeting. Tweeting. Man, I cannot.
He's quoting. You don't tweet. You twat. You don't.
No. Jordan Peterson is obviously queefing right now.
Oh God.
Okay.
Oh God.
So, okay, my position is that both outcomes are completely unacceptable. The position is held on varying forms of.
Do you want me to go to the original tweet from Brett Weinstein? Let me see. Yeah, because this got popped up in my feed. So this is the original tweet that started it all. Let me.
Both outcomes are completely unacceptable.
Yeah, this is the original tweet, and then I don't know if this dude is. I'm pretty sure they are related. Eric Weinstein or whatever. He says.
Okay, so Brett and Eric Weinstein are brothers. So Brett Weinstein is the guy who got kicked out of Evergreen for showing up to teach his class while being white. Eric Weinstein.
What a crime!
Yeah.
Hang him from the clit of Lady Liberty.
Oh yeah. So Brett and Eric are pretty staunchly on the left, but they are free speech advocates. So they're closer towards the classical liberal left. So I'm trying to divides these folks as which way. Okay, so yeah, I think this is a little more nuanced than people are giving credit to, because so the idea is if Kavanaugh is confirmed, that's also going to be kind of bad for the country. And on this, I agree. So I think the Democrats kind of forced us into a situation where it's kind of like, well, to be fair to Kavanaugh, it's kind of like he either goes to the Supreme Court or he's done. He's toast. He has no more career. He has that's the end of his run. He can't just go back to where he was previously and just stay there, which would have happened had this whole Blasey Ford and all this nonsense not occurred. He could have.
Let's be honest. He'd probably find himself a job on Fox News.
Maybe.
Oh, okay. God.
Yeah. So had all this stuff not occurred, and had it just been on the issues, and then the vote could have gone no, and he could have just gone back to his regular career, and that would be the end of the line for him, but not the end of his career. Because this is what I've said earlier is, I think that because of all of this, he is so polarizing to the left. So if he is confirmed, that's going to galvanize the left. Like all the people, I don't know if Ham is on this situation where you think he's a rapist. All the people who think he's a rapist, if he gets nominated to the Supreme Court and becomes a member of the Supreme Court, they're going to lose all faith in the Supreme Court. And the amount of crazy leftists, I mean, with all due respect, no, that's not the right. No, I think you're crazy, Ham, in this regard. I
think you're crazy too, HUMANE.
Okay. So the leftists who think that Kavanaugh is an actual rapist and a gang rapist, if he's on the Supreme Court, they lose all trust in the Supreme Court. And you're talking about a quarter to a third of the country that are in that boat. That's like that all think, right? Because if you're looking at this, it is a mainstream Democratic position that Brett Kavanaugh is a rapist and should not be confirmed. So if he is confirmed, that changes everything in November.
Yeah, to me, this really sucks when we have a Supreme Court vacancy on an election year, whether it be a presidential or midterm. I hate that when that happens.
And if I was the Democrats, I would purposely wait until after the midterms and copy the exact identical arguments that the Republicans used when they kept Scalia's seat opened all throughout.
Oh, and they have been.
Obama's last year in office.
Yeah, to me, I thought that was bullshit. What's his name from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell. He said his proudest moment was saying to Obama, "Mr. President, you will not fill the Supreme Court vacancy." Yeah. He said that was his proudest moment. Now he's bitching about the Democrats supposedly obstructing.
Yeah. So the Democrats can obstruct all they want, but right now the Republicans have, they've got the majority, which is why they were able to obstruct during this. Was it Garland, right?
Yeah, Garland.
Yeah. So because the Republicans had the majority, so they could obstruct during Garland, like they had the position of power to obstruct during that time. So the Democrats were hoping to obstruct until the midterms, and then they were hoping that there would be a blue wave in the midterms, and then they would gain power, and then they could obstruct for the rest of Trump's presidency, or at least for the first term, and then they're hoping that he never gets a second term. So the problem right now is, I don't think, or prior to this, I didn't think there would be a blue wave. I still think that right now there is not going to be a blue wave. However, if Kavanaugh is confirmed, that's going to anger a lot of people. And who was talking about this? So, I just heard Ted Cruz on Steven Crowder talking about this. Like, angry people go to the polls. Angry people, people being angry is a driving force behind a movement. And so if there are, a quarter of the population, or possibly up to a third of the population that believe Kavanaugh is a rapist, or at least, tried to rape Blasey Ford, and they believe her and they think she's credible, there's no way there is going to be a red wave or even a red hold of Congress come November. Those people are going to come out in force, and they're going to vote for O'Rourke, or Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke, whatever, Beta O'Rourke. They're going to vote in people like him, and
no matter what his name is Beta.
Yeah. So if there is about a fourth of the country to a third of the country that all think Kavanaugh is a rapist and Republicans are responsible for putting him in the Supreme Court, there will be that blue wave. That's...
Yeah.
I hope that the percentage of the population is not that large that believe he's a rapist. I hope it's more of the case where a lot of Democrats are looking at this and just saying like, oh, if that's the part if that's what the party is, I want no part of it, and walk away and vote Republican instead. I'm seeing a lot of that, but I don't think that there's enough of that to counteract the Alyssa Milanos and SNLs.
It would be really, it'd be nice if the Democratic Party died and if they don't go to the Republicans, because I don't like the GOP, it'd be nice if they could go to some other party, or if they just form some coalition or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of have the opposite fear when it comes to the Brett Kavanaugh fallout. I fear that it might actually galvanize Republicans to get them out and voting, and it'll turn people who are somewhat in the middle. They look at the spectacle that the Democrats have done in the Senate, and they look at how just fucking absurd that they're acting, and they're like, wow, these Democrats are fucking psychotic. Well, I guess I'm voting Republican because they at least believe in the principle of innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, so that's what I think is going to happen if Kavanaugh is not confirmed, right? So if he gets voted out, then I think you won't see the blue wave, you won't see the mass hysteria from blues. and you will see reds going to like, okay, well, if that's the way it's going to be, we need more representation.
Republicans.
Yeah, we need more
I
Republican
think it'll
representation.
happen either way.
I think that this
Yeah.
is going to be this is going to be a hotly contested midterm, and I think the turnout is going to soar because
Okay.
last midterm under 40% of the country actually bothered to vote, and there's a lot of Senate seats that the Democrats have to defend, and some are very vulnerable incumbents. So I think the Republicans have a chance to keep the Senate, although because the Democrats are looking horrible when it comes to the Senate.
Yeah.
As for the House, I think they'll suffer some losses, but I don't think it'll be like this overwhelming, like the Democrats decisively take the House. But I think the GOP will suffer some losses in the midterms. I don't know how bad or whatever, but someone's going to have to lose.
Okay. And so. Oh, whoops.
That's a
Yeah, my phone is ringing. Yeah. So what I was saying is, so if Kavanaugh is confirmed, that will kind of act as a coolant for the Republicans' anger that they're building up right now. So that'll be like, okay, even though the Democrats, they will kind of like back off a bit and be like, okay, yeah, the Democrats were crazy, but we succeeded anyway. Okay, now we don't have to, we got this on lock. So it'll act as kind of a coolant on the rage that's building up right now. And Kavanaugh's confirmation will so it'll act as a coolant on the Republican side while heating up the Democrat side. And I think if he is not accepted, it would have the opposite effect, right? So where the Democrats would be kind of cooled up, like, whoo, dodge that bullet, and the Republicans will be like, oh, that's the last straw, we're getting rid of all the Democrats. So I think I can't be 100% certain on this with what Jordan Peterson is talking about. So if Kavanaugh is confirmed and stepped down, not only does that save his career, because he can go back to being on the justice, because, hey, you were confirmed, that means we don't think that you're a rapist, we accept that you are worthy or at least eligible for the Supreme Court, and if you step down, then the Democrats have nothing to rally against, because they can't be like, hey, we've got this rapist in the Supreme Court, and that's what Republicans did. Be like, well, you don't have that rapist in the Supreme Court. He stepped down from the position. That would kind of cool off the Democrats as far as they would have no real rallying cry to go behind. That would also give the Republicans like, hey, you guys did your job, but it would cool off that. So I think that would serve the effect of cooling off both. And then we would just get the regular turnout of what we'd expect, like normally. Prior to the whole Kavanaugh confirmation hearings and all that sort of thing, I think we would revert back to the original, what was going to happen in November.
Or maybe America's become even more polarized, and maybe we'll see like both sides coming out in full force.
Yeah, if Kavanaugh steps down, I'm not quite sure why that would be the case, because I guess maybe the Democrats would be like, well, they still nominated the guy, but...
I do gotta go, guys, but you all take care now.
Okay. Oh, you're gonna leave me in a room with him?
Yes, you two can... Ham, you can hit on him now.
Oh, God.
Oh, Lord.
All right, but, yeah, we've been going on for 2 hours, so... Alright, so that means another hour before... No, all right, but I do think we need to start wrapping up. So yeah. Yo diggity, gotta wrap it up.
I just want to give you my personal opinion on the whole Kavanaugh confirmation issue. I am disgusted at how the Democrats have. I have to, what they should have focused on from the beginning is, Brett Kavanaugh's policy positions.
Okay.
Most specifically on his defense of NSA wiretapping.
Yeah, so that's a more reasonable approach than I thought you were actually going to have.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly never really cared about the rape allegations.
Oh, wait, you don't hashtag believe all women? What?
No, I don't. If he's guilty and they can prove it, okay, fine. We toss him. If he's innocent, then someone needs to eat some crow. Brett Kavanaugh will probably have a really good case against Dianne Feinstein and Blasey Ford, for slander.
And Sweatnick. Sweatnick's was probably the most ridiculous. Like, wait, gang rapes that no one knows about, that no one has ever heard of?
I see. I don't even know who the fuck Sweatnick is.
Oh, that's the one who. Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ!
That's his witness. The one who says that she went to 10 parties when she was graduated and she was 19. She went to parties with minors and they were spiking people's drinks, and she still went to 10 of these parties, and then she ended up getting gang raped at them. Like,
can the creepy porn lawyer be found hanging in his fucking closet jerking himself off?
Possibly. He's probably gonna die like the David Carradine way. Oh, this is the other crazy thing. Okay. Oh, this is what I forgot to bring about. So, Ford's ex-boyfriend, in his testimony, talked about Ford coaching someone else on how to take a lie detector test. So he is claiming that she coached her friend who is working for the FBI on how to take the polygraph test, and then she testified in Congress or before Congress that she had never coached anybody and she had never been coached on taking a polygraph. So, yeah, that's going to be pretty big as far as her a possible perjury claim against her. I didn't bring that up earlier because that was the thing I was forgetting. She coached people on how to take the polygraph test. Now, whether that is how to pass it or just trying to make people less nervous about it, still doesn't matter because the prosecutor who was asking questions on behalf of the Republican senators asked her specifically that. Not just how to pass one, but have you ever coached someone on just taking it?
This is why I hate the Democrats so fucking much. They are literally the worst at playing politics because they have something given to them on a golden fucking platter. Brett Kavanaugh's position on the Fourth Amendment. If they campaigned on that, there's no refutation to that. But no, they picked the worst possible fucking argument.
Yeah.
Because
they
guess
attack
what?
on the character rather than arguments. Yeah.
Because guess what? These Democrats probably actually agree with the NSA wiretapping. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, majority of them
if many of them looked at the voted for the Patriot Act.
Yeah, and the majority of them are still out for blood when it comes to Snowden and Assange, right? Both of them are like, oh, those are terrorists and traitors, and they should be hanged at the net. Like those are the Democrats and Republicans both. I'm like, dude, they called you out on your BS, on your abuse of power. They called you and the CIA and all these people out on abusing the American people's trust, and you call them the traitors, or them those are the monsters. Yeah. So the Democrats and the Republicans, at least for the most part, they all want more spying on the American people and want more tapping and want more recording of our conversations, and yeah.
If a Rand Paul type or a Ron Paul type Republican came out and pardoning Julian Assange, or giving them some immunity from prosecution for their non-crimes, I would feel a moral obligation to vote for that guy.
Yeah. And that's
because these guys are heroes. That's what they are.
Okay. So I'm glad we're in agreement on that. So yeah, even Chelsea Manning to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Bradley Manning is actually the hero. Chelsea Manning can take the credit.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, it's like the what was that? Caitlyn Jenner, right? Supposedly, a what's that, Olympic triathlon, or like, wait, Caitlyn didn't do any of that. That was all. What was his name? Bruce. That was all Bruce Jenner. Bruce Jenner won the gold medal. Caitlyn just wearing them after the fact.
Caitlyn Jenner is doesn't mean you're a good person.
Yeah.
As is Riley Dennis.
Okay.
Christine Blasey Ford is braver than any Marine.
Nope.
Because she went up to the Senate and lied her ass off.
Yeah. So so prior to all of this, I would have said a no on Kavanaugh, but I don't think there's any way around it because right now the way it is, a no vote looks like, oh, I believe that he's a rapist. That because they've associated voting no with believing Ford. Like, if anybody who is a Republican who's kind of like, you know what, I don't care about any of this rape accusations, but I don't agree with him based on the Fourth Amendment. If they vote no, people are going to read, oh, they think Ford is telling the truth. They think this guy did it. So if the majority of the Senate votes no on Kavanaugh, people are going to come away like, oh, yeah, he definitely did it. It's going to turn into OJ, right? It's going to be like, oh, yeah, he's not going to jail, but we all know he killed her. That's essentially what people will think about Kavanaugh. It's like, well, he didn't go to prison or he didn't get the Supreme Court, but we all know he raped her or tried to rape her. That's what people will think.
That's a pretty bad comparison because it's pretty much obvious that OJ did kill the girl and the boyfriend.
Yeah. So while I think OJ was guilty, the verdict here, a no vote is going to have people convinced that, oh yeah, he did it. If it's an overwhelming no from the Senate, I think popular opinion will be that Kavanaugh is a sexual deviant.
Well, where I is, what popular opinion doesn't matter. Is what are these guys? What is this guy's policy positions, and how will he affect America for the next 40, 50 years? This guy's pretty young. Young for an American politician.
Yeah. So
he's
in his 50s, and so that's you're looking at minimum of 20 years of making rulings on the bench, right?
I'd say minimum 30 years.
Well,
I mean, you got justices.
Yeah.
What, they're in their fucking 90s?
Yeah, 90. Like Ginsburg is, I think she's in her 90s. So yeah, it's minimum of 20 years, potentially up to 40 years of being on the bench. So
we're probably going to have another SCOTUS fight just like this. Once Ginsburg
kicks the bucket,
either retires or kicks the bucket, because she's on death's door. She's on her last year.
Yeah, I think she's going to fall asleep in court, and then somebody's going to go to wake her up and realize that she's been dead for a week. That's...
Oh, God! I think people would notice that she was, like, dead. Or unless she's, like, so fucking dehydrated skeletal, nobody would tell the difference.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I'm like, dude, how can you tell she's still alive right now? I mean, that's she's at that point where it's like I feel sorry for her. I'm like, but there's no way she can accurately do her job right now. Especially when you look at all the video footage of her sleeping through court cases, like, yeah, it's like you missed half of it. Your eyes are closed for over half of it. How can you possibly know what was going on? How can you possibly make a ruling?
Doesn't matter when I'm deep in REM sleep.
Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't just outright started snoring at one of these. Okay, so there was another part of that was so coaching on the lie detecting and all that sort of thing. So that's what reminded me. So the person that Ford was coaching on the lie detector test, whether we don't know what the extent of that is, whether that was how to pass it or, how to subvert it. It's more than likely we're giving her the benefit of the doubt on this. She was just coaching her on how the procedure of taking the test to kind of relieve this person's anxiety about taking the test. That woman works for the FBI, and there are pictures of her working with Avenatti, the porn lawyer who was working with Swetnick, who's making these other accusations. There's images of this FBI agent that is a friend of Ford's, working with creepy porn lawyer.
Okay, seriously,
What?
Can this Avenatti creepy porn lawyer guy commit suicide by shooting himself 3 times in the back of the head?
It's probably, if Kavanaugh does not get confirmed, I wouldn't doubt that. Like, robbery gone bad. 3 holes in the back of the head. Yep, seemed open and shut case.
Oh my God! This is the worst case of suicide I've ever seen. This guy stabbed himself 100 times, tore his own limbs apart, and hanged himself. Holy!
And then
shit.
decapitated his head and put it in another suitcase. Man, this guy must have been dedicated. All right.
I actually want to see a scenario play out where that is the actual explanation.
There's that case in Europe or in the EU. Yeah, same thing, right? So there was that case over there where there was a woman's body found in 2 suitcases, and the police were talking about it being a potential suicide. And you're like, wait. Her body was in 2 suitcases. Suicide? You're not ruling out suicide as an option. You're like, oh, that probably. She just, she prepared her suicide really well so that way when she was cut in half, she would fall into the suitcases and then they would close up, and then, like, what kind of, Rube Goldberg machine did she set up to pull that off?
Seriously, give these guys a notepad and pencil to, like, draw the series.
The what? Sorry, you got cut out there.
Oh, give these guys a pad and pencil, to draw out the series of events.
Oh yeah, like that led up to that, and you're like, in what world does this make sense? Yeah, like first option on that should be, oh, this person was murdered, and then they try to dispose of the bodies by hiding it in 2 suitcases. Anyway, there's.
I got a couple questions for you that aren't related to Kavanaugh at all.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up in about 5 minutes here.
All right.
Okay.
So, are you aware that if you're in a zombie apocalypse, the best weapon, at least according to Twitter, to take into a zombie apocalypse will be good thoughts and feelings?
What? Yeah, zombies. They are deterred by good thoughts and feelings. Wait, do you do a Twitter poll on that?
That was Lonely. That was Lonely Wolf's suggestion during that little discussion thing I held last night on my channel. We were discussing which weapon combinations would be best in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, in line of Lonely Wolf's answers, we should just teach zombies not to eat people.
Hey, now that's ableist.
All right, so my weapons of choice. So I don't know how exactly this constitutes, because you said a 1 firearm and 1 melee weapon. So for firearm, grappling gun. For melee weapon, Garrett wire, depending on how much wire I can hold or carry with me. If it's only like the 1 Garrett wire, that's not going to do much. Then I would go with a riot shield. So grappling hook and riot shield, but depending on how much spool of wire I could take with me, I might choose that instead of the riot shield.
Yeah, I my personal pick was a Ruger 1022 and halberd.
Oh, halberd? Why would that be? Like, that's, I guess it's got range.
It's got range as a battle axe. It's a spear, and it can be even a war hammer.
Yeah, because it's got that other end. Yeah,
you could
range and versatility. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can pike heads. You can chop heads off, and you can smash heads.
All right, and what's the logic behind the Ruger? Is it just
it's basically an AR-15, just a hell of a lot quieter, and it can carry a hell of a lot more ammo.
Okay.
And no one's going to care about 22 long rifle in the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yo.
So
Yo.
my so okay, I guess I have to clarify on the zombie apocalypse. Are you imagining like inside of a mall or something like that? Because then that might change my options. I'm just assuming the entire world as opposed to a fixed location. Because then the best way to avoid the zombie apocalypse is getting the higher ground, like going on the roof of a building or something along those lines, and then just securing. So you just need to establish a secure way to go up and down in order to get resources, and then some way to keep them out of your area, which that's what the Garrett wire would be for. That seems like so the riot shield's pretty good at pushing zombies off of a roof and blocking yourself off from getting bitten and all that sort of thing. Grappling gun, obviously, to get up to the higher ground and descend from the higher ground without having to use ladders and all that sort of thing. So then you could basically create a isolated rooftop where there's no stairwell or no ladder to get up to it, so zombies can't reach you that way. But you would have a way of going up and down with a grappling hook, and then you'd have that riot shield to either push them out of your way, so that way you could get to whatever it is you're trying to get for food. So, but the Garrett wire, if you can get enough wire, and Garrett wire is very, very thin. It's any wire that you could use to actually strangle someone. You could actually set up a perimeter around your area, and then zombies, while trying to get to you, would shred themselves on that wire, which is a very, very useful tool that wouldn't go blunt like say a knife or a halberd. Even though the halberd will probably last a while, depending on how long the zombie apocalypse goes. Garrett wire is not gonna dull, although there's a chance of it breaking. But
there's a significant chance of it breaking. With a halberd, no matter how dull it is, you basically got a pole, and you just with a big piece of metal on the end, and you just smash the zombies. Of course, the wooden handle will eventually break.
Yeah.
But how cheap are hickory handles?
I don't know. If it's zombie apocalypse, you can get as many as you want.
Yeah. Hell, I actually thought of a secondary weapon. It was a 3-foot crowbar that you could buy, that you could find at any hardware store.
Okay.
Because a big piece of hardened steel like that is virtually indestructible.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it dulling or breaking. I mean, if it's gonna break lifting something heavy or something metallic. It's not gonna break against a human body. Like it's
If
hardened steel versus bones, hardened steel wins.
If that crowbar breaks, you already broke first.
Yeah. Let's see. What was I thinking?
My would be really good in a zombie apocalypse was the AR-15. It's like irrefutably the best combat weapon on the face of the planet. There's no contest. And the Remington 870, it's superbly excellent for killing zombies because point and shoot at the head, and the head goes exploding. There's no head left.
Yeah, so my only problem with that is eventually you're going to run out of ammo. And so if you're talking about long-term survivability, well, the best, this is why I don't know why this has never come up in The Walking Dead or any of these zombie series. I'm like, dude, why does nobody have an all-leather outfit? Because if you get some thick leather, no zombie is gonna be able to scratch through or bite through that. You just get this full leather outfit. It's gonna be hot as hell, but you have complete zombie protection. You can walk around and they can scratch and claw at you all they want. They're not gonna rip through that.
There's actually a lot of problems with leather armor. Actually, it's really stiff. It's really expensive. And there's other armors that you can get that are just, is way better, like chainmail. The modern equivalent would be
chainmail, but the chainmail is going to be pretty heavy.
It's going to allow you more maneuverability than leather armor.
Yeah, well, possibly. But I was just thinking, if you just wrap all your, your everything with leather, they can't bite or claw through that. So you're,
Yeah.
as long as you've got a way of pushing them away from you, you can walk through without fear of anything.
Yeah. But when it comes to zombie apocalypse, there's no compensation because a zombie's only distance. A zombie is only dangerous when it's when it's within arm's reach.
Yeah.
So if you keep it out of arm's reach, like you would with a halberd or some kind of pole weapon, you go stabby stabby, and you just got yourself a ring of zombies surrounding you.
Well, until you get tired or worn out, but yeah. So these zombie shows, they've always got to make it like they got to build the tension and stuff like that. It's like, but anybody in a who was actually in that situation was like, because this is what they started to hint at with The Walking Dead, but they never did it fully. Is like, no, you would just encircle your camp with a moat with those spikes in it, and then just clear it out of dead zombies every morning or whatever. And then all you'd need is some kind of board to lay down over it, and that's what you drive out, and you pull that drawbridge back up. Like, zombies aren't getting across that pit of spikes, no matter what they do.
Build a castle.
Yeah. Essentially.
Going back to... It's funny how the medieval era had a lot of solutions to a problem that they never even envisioned.
Yeah. So
because they're fighting something that's arguably more dangerous, a sword.
Yes, yeah. So all the medieval solutions, because back in the times, most of the weapons were melee. Medieval solutions don't work against somebody with a firearm, but if you're against zombies don't have projectiles. So all you have to anything that would be good against a melee army, like a bunch of dudes with swords. All of those defenses would be really good against zombies. All right, so that's where we'll end this. So, glad to have a bit of agreement here. Yeah, keeping it very civil, Darkkon. But
I'll end this with a meme real quick. Okay. You will never climb to heaven. You will never climb to heaven with your hands full of penis.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. I got no rebuttal to that. All right, thanks to everybody who joined me and everybody who asked questions and all of that. So hopefully I'll see you next Friday. All right,
Bye-bye.
Bye.